Welcome back to CaCo Talks. This is the second episode in our mental emotional health series. Today, we're going to be discussing narcissism. Since there's so much talk and honestly a lot of confusion on what a narcissist really looks like, we wanted to really get into the nitty-gritty of narcissism and how we can identify it in our lives today. So, continuing the series, we're going to be answering the question, does trauma lead to narcissism?
Hey guys, before we get started, we wanted to mention that today's video may be a trigger for some listeners. We are discussing sensitive material that may be a trigger for some. We want you all to know that we deeply value your wellness and mental health. If you believe our discussion may be a trigger for you, please join us in the next CaCo Talks.
All right, to get things started, we're going to start with a little definition as per usual. So, everybody throws out the term narcissism, like on TikTok and stuff, like I was saying in the intro. People are like, narcissist, this person's a narcissist, I'm a narcissist, blah, blah. But like, what does that really mean? And like, that's kind of a big word, wouldn't you say? Like, it's a big word. And sometimes it's like kind of intimidating. It's like, well, what does that really mean? Because I think some people think like it just means a toxic individual, which is not necessarily the same,
Yeah.
So like, we want to define narcissism, and we want to distinguish it also from narcissistic personality disorder, because there's one thing to be a diagnosed narcissist and have that disorder, another just to exhibit those traits. So
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So narcissism is extreme self-involvement to a degree that makes a person ignore the needs of those around them. So, clearly that definition is showing that central to that is a lack of empathy. You're not aware of somebody else's experience. You're not aware of somebody else's feelings, thoughts, perception of you, right? And while everybody kind of exhibits that, like sometimes we all can be a little bit like selfish and say, well, you know what? I don't really care what so-and-so thinks. I don't care what so-and-so feels because I'm doing me, right? But a true narcissist frequently disregards others. And what really the kicker is, they do not understand the effects of their behavior on other people. That's the real difference between just exhibiting some narcissistic traits and then being a true blue through and through narcissist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think? Well, how would you, kind of define narcissist to just like a layman? Just anybody.
I'd agree with that definition. If I had to have one word for a narcissist, I would say like a lack of empathy. That is like the telltale sign for me. And I'm talking about like in extreme circumstances, typically. They just completely lack it and or exploiting others for personal gain. So.
Yeah. And the thing about a narcissist is there's different types, right?
Yeah.
So, and like if you just Google, like literally can find like, these are the 9 types, this is the 10 types. And so there's so many, right? But I just want to kind of hit on the 4 big ones, right? So the 4 big ones are the grandiose, malignant, communal. So your grandiose narcissist, someone who overestimates their own abilities, right? So they assert their dominance over others. They have a general like inflated sense of self-esteem, right? So that's the type. But remember that a narcissist is always going to be somebody who does not understand how their behavior is affecting others, how their behavior is hurting others, how they're exploiting others. So this is just kind of like it's like flavors. That's how I think about it,
Yeah.
It's like flavors of a narcissist. It's all ice cream, but do you have strawberry or do you have chocolate? You know what I mean? Like, so, but yeah, so that's grandiose. And then a malignant narcissist is just like the name says, they're manipulative and they're malicious, right? So they have a lot of signs of sadism and aggression. And this is the most severe type of narcissist, person with a narcissistic personality disorder, because they actually go out and like hurt people, right? Like they're aggressive and sadistic. And I think when I see most people talk about narcissists, I think a lot of times they're talking about malignant, because that's the person you can recognize, like,
that stands out. For sure.
Because they're like hurting people, All right. And so then the next one is a covert narcissism, but there's another name for it too, which I didn't know, but another name called a vulnerable narcissist, right? So this is like the complete opposite to the grandiose, or opposite in flavor. They're still narcissists. They tend to be shy and like self-effacing. So I guess kind of like self-deprecating. right?
Yeah.
And that they kind of I guess pretend to be distressed or hypersensitive, right? But they actually do it just because they crave people's recognition, and they get very defensive in the face of criticism. So people who cannot take criticism, which I thought was interesting because I never thought about somebody who's a covert narcissist.
Yeah.
But
I can see that though. Now that you say that, I can think of some people.
Yeah. And I think the kicker there is like people who cannot take criticism or who get defensive when somebody actually tries to criticize them.
Yeah, which made me question too. Like, is that just like because I feel like our generation to an extent can't handle criticism, right? So I wonder if that's like a generational thing.
It might be. But then again, I feel like so many older people are narcissists.
That too.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think they probably mean criticism as in like basic criticism. Like you can't say that anything.
Yeah.
Not just like, okay, well, you're if you're like a musician, your song didn't really resonate with me or because of X, Y, Z. It's like anything that doesn't uplift them in the slightest way, they are very defensive about. Like if their shoe color or if you don't like, or if you're just not vibing with their like, I don't know.
Anything they're doing.
Anything that they're doing. Yeah. Like they can't handle the smallest bit of criticism. That's what I think. It's
For
like,
sure, yeah. That's true.
And then the final type, which is not the only types, this is just, the ones I'm defining for us. These are people, it's called communal narcissism. And I think this one actually is the most interesting. And really, they're people who have like excellent social skills. So they're like charming and they have high degrees of likability. So people like them and they like, are helpful. But in reality, they're actually just hypocritical and they really are only doing those things because they're focusing on meeting their own intrinsic need by helping other people. So it's like, it's like ulterior motive driven.
So it's kind of like a God complex.
Yeah, it's like a God complex type person, like somebody who really only sees, they might be helping you, but it's only for their ego, for their benefit.
So they can feel good about themselves.
So it's like backhanded. Yeah, it's backhanded.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what do you think about those definitions? It seems like you kind of have already identified like some people that you might have come into contact with who,
For sure. I hate to be like one of those TikTok people where it's like, oh my God, I know so many people like that. But I mean, with reading these definitions, which I didn't know there was that many types of narcissism. I didn't even know there was a personality disorder when it came to narcissism. But knowing this now, I'm like, yeah, I think I know everybody to fit into, not everybody. I know someone that can fit into each of these little sections.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is narcissism is a spectrum.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like somebody can have one of these or two of these or three and exhibit all those qualities. I think, like I was saying, it's like flavors.
Yeah.
They are all ice cream. It's which one are you getting?
Exactly. Which flavor you want.
Like, it's like you get a narcissist, everybody gets a narcissist. Because that's actually kind of what we are.
And I don't want one.
Exactly.
The ice cream.
It's like the ice cream that someone's like forcing down your throat.
Yeah.
That's what we're yeah, that's the truth. That's what it is. Yeah, it's wild. Like narcissism. So much to say about it. But yeah, so yeah, and since we're on definitions here, we should really define what narcissistic personality disorder as distinct from just narcissism or just narcissistic traits. So narcissistic personality disorder, or NP, is basically a condition which still involves that overinflated sense of self, extreme for attention and admiration and sympathy. But the thing about the disorder is it really, by the time it gets to be a disorder, it's like impacting this person's life to a point where they can like no longer kind of like control their own, really their own behaviors. You know what I mean? It's like they are out of, I guess they're so like far gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, what do you think about that? Or like, how would you define narcissistic personality disorder?
I agree with that. I think that's what makes it the personality disorder, because now it's affecting your personality and or your character, right? Versus the other ones is more of like how you're behaving, right? So to me, that's the distinction between the two. But I definitely can see that. So while they are, one is more of the action you're taking versus the other one is legit a brain change. So yeah, I think that wow. So is the personality disorder still a part of the spectrum, or is that a mental health thing?
I think that's on the spectrum.
Okay.
It's kind of like the autistic spectrum.
Yeah.
Somebody might have Asperger's, but then there's also autism, which is an extremer form of that.
Yeah.
So someone can exhibit like grandiose narcissism, but if they have if they're already, I guess, if they have several of those different types of narcissism, then it becomes personality disorder, and they can no longer I guess it's like they just can't control their behavior. Like they're subject to their own mind and behavior. You know what I mean?
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see. So that's just like the extreme of the spectrum, of one of the extremes.
Yeah. And that's why in this definition, it's like extreme need for attention, extreme need for admiration. They have superficial relationships and they lack empathy. And it's like repeated behavior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's the big thing. It's not like a one-time situation and then they behave normally or with compassion. It's like this person exhibits over and over again an inability to actually form real relationships and actually show empathy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like learning disorders. Yes, we all might take some time to learn something for a test where you might fail one test. That doesn't mean you have a whole disorder. It's like your outlook. You know what I mean? On
for
things.
Sure. Yeah.
That's how I think about the disorder. Yeah, their disorder kind of frames their entire way of being.
Exactly. It's kind of like the other personality disorders, DID, for example.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if there's a spectrum with DID, but a DID is dissociative identity disorder. But same thing, that is the extreme of dealing with multiple beings, I guess, in your head. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and they classify it also as a psychiatric disorder. So it's considered seriously a mental health disorder.
So what about the other types? Are those considered psychiatric disorders, or just NPD?
I think NPD, you get classified as NPD when you probably when you exhibit multiple of those different types, gotcha. Or either when it's seriously affecting your life and there's a pattern to it,
Exactly.
That's what I think. It's you could have narcissistic personality disorder and your main form of narcissism be covert narcissism, I think. But I would say probably more often than not is people who have multiple of those types combined into one person. You know?
Yeah, I can see that.
That's what I think. And that's what probably makes it when they feel like a professional needs to step in because they cannot.
Yeah.
They don't function properly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and something I found interesting, which I did not know, and people don't ever say this, but when you actually are narcissistic, there's a significant risk for suicide. And it's also linked to other psychiatric disorders.
I can see that.
So, yeah. And so I was thinking, so why do you think a suicide rate would be so high with someone suffering from NPD?
I think it would be high just because of it seems like across the board there's an extreme desire for people to give you said attention or get what you want out of it. And so if they feel like they're not getting that, then it's oh, I'll just take myself out. I'm kind of I'm hurting you kind of thing, to prove a point. It's everything is done so that they benefit and everybody else kind of suffers. So to me, it would be more of a standpoint of I'm going to make you suffer.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. And that's kind of a sick way of thinking about it, of trying to make someone else suffer by your suffering. But I can see that, because like you said, a narcissist is going to do anything to sort of like make others, like seek that attention, or like honestly, like just kind of trample on others,
Yeah.
And something else I forgot to mention, which is good to note about narcissism, is they actively and routinely disrespect boundaries.
Oh, for sure.
They're big into gaslighting, public shaming, and deflection. They use manipulation. I don't know if I mentioned that, but narcissists use manipulation. That is actually their
biggest
number
tactic.
one ammo. Yeah, biggest tactic is manipulation, gaslighting, deflection.
Yeah, it's always your fault.
Always your fault. Never theirs. They can never take accountability for their actions, especially even if it's like clearly this is your fault. So yes, it's very much a narcissist.
So do you feel like you've like come into contact with any narcissists, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, the first narcissist I came in contact with was our father.
Yeah, true.
And even since then, I'm thinking of how some people behave. I try to decipher who's really a narcissist or not. I don't think since him I've had to like sit in the presence of a narcissist for very long, just because like I'm able to really peep that very early. But I really do think some of the people at my like most recent job, the way they just would behave, I really think a lot of them are either they really strongly exhibit narcissistic traits, or they have that disorder. Because I really like a lot of the stuff is on here. They just do this stuff to just random people they really don't know, which makes me think this is how you just behave in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you think that? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so because I feel like in your experience, you're stating that the men are the most of the narcissists that you've come into contact with, or those that you have suspected. Do you think that narcissism is linked to masculinity?
You know what? I think that is very true, and that deserves a real conversation, because sometimes, and I have to try to like decipher in my mind, is this person just trying to live up to like the masculine ideal and try to be a man, or are they legitimately a narcissist, or are they just the one and the same?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you think about, what it means to be a man, and the only people I felt like were narcissists in my life were men, right? If we think about what it means to be a man, that means what? Showing little regard for other people's emotions, so lack of empathy. Guarding your own emotions. Always having that kind of like cold indifference. And in male culture, they always deflect. It's never their fault. They're always like, especially blaming women for any issues in a relationship or any issues with their behavior. Always deflecting. They have this like, it's like male need to kind of like, they create hierarchies of like, I'm the best, or like they're always competing with each other, right? So they're always trying to be like number one, or they kind of inflate their egos, right?
Yeah.
But in doing so, they crave people's attention. They crave recognition from other people, because that's the only validation that they really get. And overestimating their abilities. How many times have we ran into dudes who think that they are like, should have been drafted in the NBA straight out of high school, and can't shoot a ball in the basket? Like, how many times have we ran into those dudes, or like to their own detriment, like will not ask somebody for help? You know what I mean? So I really think being a man means being a narcissist in some ways, But what do you think?
I think also too, like just the excuses for a man breeds a narcissist. Even though, they're raised by women, but women tend to just excuse a lot of things, because like, oh, he's a man, he doesn't have to do this because he's going to be a man, and da 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 da. That's not an excuse, right? You still should be accountable for your actions, and or the actions that you may push onto someone else, and or your emotions and your feelings. And I think in today's time, it's important to tap into your feelings and just accept, what is going on with you. That's easier said than done, but we should be promoting that at this point. There's really no excuse. So, to me, I do think narcissism is I don't know if it's the direct cause of, is not directly caused maybe by toxic masculinity, but it eats, sleeps, and breathes, and could easily lead to a narcissistic individual.
Yeah. it's like this analogy. If masculinity, and specifically toxic masculinity, is the car, the gas is narcissism.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's what I think. That's really how hand in hand they go, you know? Yeah, and which makes sense. Like most of the people who I've come across in my life who have been narcissists are men. And this isn't some like man-hating thing, but it's the truth. I'm like, I mean, can you attest to that too? Like, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I think of anyone that I've come into contact with, the majority, if not the only people that I have suspected are narcissists have been males. I don't think I've ever ran into a woman I'm like, oh, you're a narcissist.
Yeah.
But I also think like if there was a woman who was a narcissist, it would definitely be the covert. So it's hard to depict just because women are quote unquote more empathetic in general, right? But women can be deceptive in that sense too. You know, they may make it look like they are caring for you and they're really not.
Yeah. You know what? I take it back. I think I have met one woman narcissist.
Really?
Or someone who at least exhibits narcissistic traits. This was somebody I met in college. And like you're saying, I think she was probably a combo of probably just more covert narcissist, right? Like kind of self-effacing and like not so much shy, but really everything they were doing was definitely motivated by craving somebody's recognition, and was definitely willing to throw anybody under the bus, including me, and willing to throw people under the bus in order to like get what they needed from the situation. You know? This was somebody I met in college and like worked with in college. I did not have like a romantic relationship with them, but I had a working relationship with them, and that became quite clear to me by the end of our relationship.
Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like that was probably the one time when I go back and think about it that I came across a woman who was like covert narcissist.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. But if you're getting that little tingle or like I don't know,
trust your gut.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. That's what I say. You know?
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut for sure. But yeah, and another interesting thing I found out that I didn't know is like narcissists are actually characterized by this kind of like failure to launch syndrome. So people who like fail to launch are people who just don't, I guess, like meet the kind of like expectation of like hitting certain milestones in your life. You know what I mean? Like not going to college, not doing like, not that college is the only way, but like just kind of that like not lackluster, but like loser type, like never went to get a job, can't finish things, you know, still kind of at home with mom, you know.
That constant excuse.
That constant excuse. Which now that I think about it, I'm like, that's definitely the story that we were always told about our father. We didn't recognize at the time as narcissism, but I'm like, yeah, he very much had a failure to launch.
You think so?
Period. That's what from what we were told, yeah.
Yeah,
I think about the time.
You know, you used to always characterize him as a late bloomer. And I was like, what's that mean? But I could see, okay.
Yeah, because think about where he was in his life in comparison to where our mother was in her life when they met. And mind you, he's 5 years older than her.
Yeah.
So
then it became somebody else's problem to get him there. And then it was like crap on that person.
Exactly. He has a failure. He had the failure to, he just never, he didn't meet certain milestones.
Yeah, he only was able to do it because of someone else.
Because someone else pushed him along. Otherwise, he would have sat and just continued to do nothing.
You know what I mean? Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's disgusting. Yeah.
I mean, it is disgusting, but when I saw that, I was like, no, that's true. That's true.
That's it. That's so true, though. And everybody used to be like, "Oh, he's a late bloomer," and I'm like, what does that mean? But,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you put it in that context in relation to the narcissism or narcissistic traits and whatnot, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And the thing about narcissists is they don't really see themselves as a problem.
Yeah.
So when you point these things out to them, it's like, what what are you talking about? That's not me. I don't do that.
For sure.
Or I don't behave that way. That's what you think. That's your experience of me. Or like, if that's how you feel, you know, that's like classic narcissist line. If you feel that way, like just dismissing somebody's, you know, experience.
Yeah. So I was reading and I found that some other extreme behaviors that someone with narcissistic personality disorder may exhibit are overly emotional, unpredictable thinking or behavior, distorted facts, making false accusations, enjoyment of getting away with breaking the rules or violating boundaries, using psychological manipulation like gaslighting, public shame and deflection, aggression, and antisocial behavior. Do you think those things apply to maybe someone that you've met that may be narcissistic and or has narcissistic personality disorder?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you hate to just keep going back to our father, but I mean, when we find out that what narcissism really meant, it was like, heck yes.
Yeah,
it was
that's true.
we found out exactly what this person is, but he yeah. I would just say him, like it's like especially the gaslighting and the kind of just dismissal of somebody else's experience.
Even the unpredictable like behavior.
Unpredictable behavior, yeah. Not showing up where he was supposed to be at certain times.
Even his like emotional responses, like
yeah,
you didn't know what you were gonna get.
You didn't know what you were gonna get. You're always kind of like on edge.
Always violating people's boundaries. I don't know about breaking rules necessarily, but violating boundaries, like that was like his favorite pastime.
But I also feel like he was breaking rules because really, if you think about like his drinking and driving, he was actively breaking social codes, rules he knew as an adult male. He knew you don't drink and drive, but that's what he did. So yeah, breaking rules and just all around kind of this like I'm above
the law.
Whatever law.
Yeah.
You know, which is that's so dangerous for a man, for a black man. That is so dangerous a place to be in because, you know, the law is already harsher on our community, right? And then you have this false idea that you are somehow above it. That just seems like I don't know how he survived.
Seriously.
I don't know. Seriously. Especially some of the situations he was like caught up in, you know?
For sure.
I don't know how he survived, but I mean, he did. But yeah, it's crazy how you can go down the list for him specifically and be like, he checks off everything.
Everything.
Not even just to be a narcissist or exhibit those traits. I mean, the personality disorder. Because he exhibited his behavior numerous times with numerous different people, more than just our family, me and Caitlin, you know, and our mother, other people as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he really, and it was like you only knew him for so long before he started exhibiting all these traits. And he's someone who actively went around, quote, like ruining people's lives, right?
Oh, so, yeah. Like I can countless women's lives. I'm just like, what? Oh my gosh.
Like the man has he's like, it feels almost like someone's a sociopath. It feels like a sociopath, but it really is narcissistic personality disorder, I think, is really the big thing with him. But he's like undiagnosed and nobody took it seriously because there really wasn't, before 5 years ago, there wasn't a lot of dialogue about it.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think, also like he's from a different generation, right? So generationally, I think they really just see it as like, it's kind of that like trope in our community of like Papa was a Rolling Stone, right? Like wherever he laid his hat was his home. Like, oh, that's just men will be men. They'll have different women. They'll be, you know, philanderers. They're not going to take care of their kids. You know, people are thinking, oh, he just fits the stereotype somehow. No, this man has a problem. Seriously. Like, that's not okay. That's not okay. Like, you know, like, I don't know. What do you think? How would you put him and that personality disorder into the bigger like cultural context for the Black community?
I think from his generation, I would say that they were just very dismissive, but I feel like they were dismissive as a complete generation. I think that generation, they were oftentimes like, if something's wrong, it's just like, oh, hush it up, don't talk about it, like he'll figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're also aided him in his narcissistic personality, because it was just like he really could just do whatever he wanted. Nobody was going to talk about it. Nobody was going to question it. No one was going to get him help. But on top of, him being narcissistic, I wonder if his narcissism has something to do, or is a direct link of his traumatic brain injury. Because that can definitely rewire someone's brain, right? When something is affecting your brain like that, it definitely will rewire, and that's a huge trauma for the brain physically. So I wonder, like, I would love to know who he was before he had his traumatic brain injury, to who he is now and who he became, because I wonder if there's a difference there.
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's like the world's biggest question. Like, we will really never know.
Yeah, we would never know.
We won't know, because we only met him when he was a full-blown narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see how that brain injury could really cause him to it would cause alterations in his brain.
For sure. It's kind of like the trauma that we talked about in like the previous episode.
Exactly. Yeah. It's physical brain trauma.
Yeah. Especially like just like the emotional trauma and like physical trauma that rewires and restructures your brain just from that. So a physical trauma on the brain, I can only imagine the effects,
Exactly. Yeah. But I also think, and this isn't really devil's advocate, but I also think that despite the traumatic brain injury, because trauma is so linked to an emotional experience, or narcissism specifically is linked to emotional experience. I feel like it's also his upbringing. I feel like he might have been a narcissist regardless of whatever, brain injury, because obviously his parenting, his, lack of boundaries, or his, the extreme trauma he experienced from childhood molded into a narcissist. His unhealed trauma molded him into a narcissist. So I think it's partly the physical brain. I think the other part of it is he was allowed to become a narcissist. Plain and simple. Yeah,
I mean, I guess. I really think, like I said,
it's too easy to throw it off on the bullet in the brain. That's too easy to me.
See, I don't think it's too easy, because I'm telling you, your body will do some crazy things for self-preservation.
Yes.
So that's why I like, and I really like medicine and like sciencey things. So, I think part of it is, all factors, and you have to contribute things to the whole picture. But I'm saying, I really do think like the brain injury is the big bang, right? And then you have like these other minor factors that enabled the brain injury, right? To get to where we are today, which is a full-blown narcissist.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess he's kind of like a case study, because it's like, if you have something physically traumatic versus is it your emotional trauma?
Exactly.
I really see it as,
because I would say like some individuals I know have had like trauma, whatever, emotional trauma, growing up trauma, physical trauma, maybe not a direct brain injury. And they may have, they may be on the spectrum, but I'm talking like full blown personality
disorder. Yeah. I feel like regardless, he would have become a narcissist. I feel like he would have become a narcissist whether he had that brain injury or not. That's my true, honest feeling. Because I feel like a lot of it had to do with traumatic childhood experiences that would have happened to him because of the circumstances he grew up in. That's what I think.
I don't know. I feel like it was like when the injury happened, it was like at such a young age that like,
yeah.
How would you know?
It definitely affected. It definitely affected even just how his brain began to grow and develop and change and morph into an adult brain. That absolutely affected. I'm not saying that it didn't. I'm saying, though, I feel
I'm pretty sure, like, it wasn't a clean wound. Like, it didn't come out.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
The story I always heard was that they were able to get it out.
Oh, were they? Okay.
That's what I thought I heard. I don't know, but I heard this forever ago. And like, they were always like kind of shady about giving real, kind of.
Yeah, you heard different things from different people.
You heard different things from different people. It was like different accounts, and you try to piece it together.
For sure.
We really, who knows?
Seriously.
But I feel like you could take him with a traumatic brain injury and take a child who had no traumatic brain injury, put them in the same environment growing up, and I think they both would have come out to be narcissist. I really think that.
So do you think because it's a male child, or do you think like a female child, the same thing?
I think a female child, the same thing. I think it would look differently. I think he was not only did he have a traumatic brain injury, not only was his environment a perfect storm for narcissism to grow. And we're saying that from fact because we know our grandmother and we know the family that he grew up in. So that was the perfect storm for him. And coupled with him being a male and having all the male privileges, and he's growing up in a society which is telling him to be a man, which is aligned with narcissism. More than, honestly, he had 3 very clear, very strong reasons to become a narcissist. And that's exactly what he did. I would be shocked if he didn't become one. I really would.
Yeah, see, I have a little bit of hope. Like, I'm like, maybe if he wouldn't have had the brain injury, like, maybe that would have changed things. But that's me wanting the good in people, right? I don't know.
Because I just feel like narcissism has everything to do with I just feel like it has everything to do with your emotional compass, with the traumatic you experience emotionally, psychologically. And because that's how you treat people. That's how you feel about yourself,
Yeah.
But I also can see if your brain is not fully developed, then I can see how that also could become an issue.
Right. Or like if the very thing that affects emotions or in your brain is damaged, then obviously you're not going to have empathy. You're not going to have sympathy. You're not going to have the basic emotions when it comes to other people.
Yeah, exactly. And we're kind of doing this now, but that's kind of one of the things we wanted to talk about was distinguishing between somebody being difficult or somebody having a disorder, which we're kind of doing and talking about our father. But in his case, it's quite clear to us that this man had a disorder because of the pattern he exhibited over and over and over again, right? Like it wasn't just us. It was lots of women and lots of people over time.
Yeah, even in the unpredictable with him, it was predictable. Like you knew that something unpredictable was going to happen at some point in time.
Exactly.
You knew the type of responses you were going to get. You knew he lacked empathy. You knew he lacked caring for most people outside of what they could do for him. Even like with us, he saw us as objects that made him look good. Other than that, we did not hang out with him. We did not spend time with him.
Yeah, we never built
time together was when it was beneficial for him and whatever woman he was talking to at the time. So
yeah, it was not a he was not a father. Let's just say that. He was not a father.
Yeah.
He was a narcissist. That's really all I can say about him.
Very absent.
Yeah. And the thing is that's not in physical presence all the time. Because like we say, we were seeing him regularly. It wasn't about physical presence. It was about mentally being there, emotionally being there, psychologically being there. It was about stepping into the role of being a parent, a guardian to children. He
and even
was
when we
absent
would
from that.
Quote unquote physically see him, it was like a pickup drop off.
And that goes along with narcissism to me is like they cannot commit to anything.
Yeah, I also saw something about narcissism about where there's like this aspect of control that you have to have. So like that was definitely the case. Like he had to always be in control of whatever the situation was. It was like his way or no way, or he would be like angry. So definitely had a strong need for control, and if it was not like I said, his way, it was like turmoil.
Yeah. And another thing I'm seeing too is someone's a sense of entitlement, but also seeing yourself as exceptional and condescending behavior.
Yeah,
and another big thing is like just even beyond us and how we thought about him, he always like he always saw himself as like above his own family.
Oh,
You know, like as having like arrived or like achieved something beyond what his family did. So he would always put down like his cousins. He would always put down people in his family, particularly women. I think the man has a problem with women specifically. I think he's a deep-seated misogynist.
Yeah, he never ever really did it with men, or from what I saw ever.
From what we saw. Now he would, and not that I think he looked down on men too because he's a narcissist. But I think he would, because of his maleness, I feel like he felt like he could always publicly berate women. He could always put women down, and women would always be there to sort of.
And not all women who he perceived were weak, or
perceived were weaker.
If you were a strong woman, he didn't have a chance.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, if you just knew what kind of personality he had or what kind of person he is, you know, which is another good thing to mention. The biggest thing to combat a narcissist, seriously, ignore them. That they literally cannot stand that. It's because once you know their game, you know that they manipulate, you know that they lack empathy, that they're gaslighting, that they're not going to validate your experiences. When you say, I'm not allowing that in my life, what do they have? Seriously.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
The only thing they have is ignorance, naivety, and obliviousness. That's all they work off of. And they manipulate that. Because when somebody knows, like, you have nothing hanging over their head, you know?
For sure.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people eventually just wise up to him. But, you know, even to this day, there's people who don't, which is unfortunate. But, you know, we would see it time and time again. You know, we were almost like flies on the wall because we knew what his behavior was when we were children, little children's, like under the age of 10 age, you know, we knew what his behavior was.
Oh, yeah.
But then we would see him, especially with the women moving in and out of his life, we would see the way he would do them and we'd be like, well, we'll see how long this one lasts.
Exactly. We would like kind of like bet on it. And we're like, oh,
bet on it.
Like 2 months.
We were always rooting for the woman. We were like, get out.
Seriously.
Go.
We were, like, honestly, like plotting ways. Like, how can we tell her? Because this is a setup.
This is a setup. And it's like, you know, they had the ability to leave. We didn't because we were his children. So they had a freedom we didn't even have.
Exactly.
If we could have left, we would have left.
Oh, for
period.
Sure.
As children, we would not have been there. You know.
And the thing is, like, he would, like I said, he was very unpresent. Like, he would literally pick us up and drop us off. We would most of the time be at home by ourselves, underage. You know, just like I said, fending for ourselves. So it wasn't like he had a purpose for getting us, other than like he just didn't. It really was a personal vendetta against our mother.
Yeah, a lot of control.
Yeah, that too,
or attempting to have control over somebody who had removed him from her life. You know,
and not the kids, just him from her.
Just him. Yeah,
and he, like, that was like, oh no, you can't do that.
Yeah. And also people underestimate how much a narcissist will affect and influence your life and over a long period of time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This is not it might be a year or it might be a couple months. We're talking 20, 25 years, as long as we have been alive. Okay. Now, you know, like, obviously our mother and father were in a relationship when we were born, before we were born. And the man, like, honestly, to this day, still tries to reach out to us, like in connection at times with our mother.
And this is also for clarification, we have made it known that for me personally, I really don't want to further any communication. And it's just like a lack of respecting boundaries. That just goes to show is the constant contact.
Yeah.
So he continues to try.
Yeah. And I made it clear as well that I don't know if you remember that phone conversation, but I was like, I will leave. I'm not coming. I'm not gonna deal with you. I'm not gonna come back.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, I'm not gonna do it. You know? He's firmly on the block list. But Yeah. It's unfortunate because it's like you want to just like move on with your life, but you're like, I don't know when and where this person is going to continue to crop up in my life. So there's a
and
reality
that's another
to
thing.
it.
Like he will pop up, honey. He will pop
Just
up.
pop
like,
up.
Oh my gosh.
Just pop up.
Just Which, don't be wrong, like clearly he's blocked, so like how's he gonna announce it? But I mean, just back to kind of like what we hit on the trauma, like that unexpected entrance into your life just put you back in like that childlike trauma state.
Space, yeah.
And so it's like traumatizing. Like
and it's
respect the
frustrating
boundary.
Exactly, because you work hard to move on with your life and do like other things, and then this person just tries to insert themselves in your life after you told them to leave
Exactly.
multiple times, like
Yeah.
or made it clear like we're not trying to establish any relationship with you. You know what I mean? It's like a normal person, if somebody has not spoken to you in actual years and actively blocks you, you would get the message. Okay, they don't want to be around me. I should stop. For some reason they don't get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they like, I almost feel like they like get off on it. It's
I
weird.
think so. But I also see it like from their standpoint, it's all about them. It's like, oh, you want me because I'm likable, right? Or whatever the case may be. And so they don't even see it like that. Like they don't see it as they're being intrusive. It's like, oh, you want me to be in your life. Or like in our case, like I'm your dad. So then, you need me to be in your life. Like you need me. And it's like, I've been doing fine.
It's like,
it's
buddy. Exactly. It's like this delusion that they operate under. And it's,
oh yeah,
it's very
completely delusional.
Very off-putting. It's delusion is really what it is. It's a delusion of like grandioseness.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. And our point in talking about this today is like, so people can recognize this as an issue. It's like, if he was just a narcissist and he didn't really, and he wasn't continuing to be a menace, then like what would we really have to be like, okay, he's a narcissist, move on with my life. But it's because they continue and they do not stop. They continue to try to insert themselves in your space. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like to the point now, I don't know if you're like this too, but like as I get older and I think about like, if I were to have children or be married or something, I think about, is he going to harass them too?
Oh, for sure.
It's like to that point where you really have to like think about, it's not just you. It's like there's other people
you involve yourself
with.
Yeah, and their safety as well. Like,
Exactly.
No, I definitely. I've been not directly by him recently, but like family members that are close to him, which I know they're going back and telling them everything, right?
Exactly.
But like
that's another thing I want to bring up.
That's another stream of contact for them to they use other people to get what they want. And or to find out information about what you have going on or whatever the case is. It's just like really it's just it's disgusting. It's a weird feeling to like be put in that position.
And it's invasive.
Oh, for sure.
Very invasive.
100% invasive.
And something else they do, which I read a while ago, but it's called flying monkeys. And it's based off of the Wizard of Oz. You know how the witch in the Wizard of Oz has those little flying monkeys who like go do her bidding. Yeah. They like go out and find Dorothy or whatever, and they like bring back the information, and they're like, hee,
yeah,
we got her, kind of thing, like in her evil lair. But in Narcissist, yeah, and that's true. That's where it comes from. Yeah. But Narcissists, they employ other people to go out and like do their bidding.
Yeah.
And then bring back information about somebody who they're not really supposed to have contact with, or bring back. And then when we think about it, he did that too, because there's several people in our lives who were in connection with him who would go do his bidding. Like if he somehow couldn't get to us, he would like send them. And it's almost like they're like a stand-in for him. Like I guess he tries to like hide kind of behind or like save face pretty much. By not being the one physically creeping or stalking or whatever. But then he sends his flying monkey to go do it. Still instating his presence, still invading space, but him like saving face in a way. It's like, it's sick. It's really sick behavior. Like unless you've really just dealt with somebody who's a narcissist, it's hard to explain, but it's like, it's so many layers to their to their disorder. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it just sucks when you're a child and you have to grow up in that.
Gosh, and it, like, literally as a child, I thought I was like going crazy because I was like, "What the heck?" But
Yeah.
this is just not like this is not normal. I don't think, but it like he'll make you. I remember as a kid making my like he made me feel like I was going insane with a lot of things that were going on. I'm like, I know I did not do that and or say that and or XYZ and he like like almost convince you that you did. It's bananas.
And he was just like they're just master manipulators. Like he just
my God, yeah.
He really spent his time trying to like we would try to tell him and be like, you're making us uncomfortable. We don't want to like be around you. Like we know we were always like forthright kids. We would always tell him. And he'd be like, well, what did you do? Well, how are you like the problem? And it's like these 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old children are expressing, their uncomfortability. And you're sitting here trying to find a way to blame a child. It's like it's so asinine at the time. When you're a kid, you think you are the biggest age you're ever going to be. So you think I can handle this. That's like an 8-year-old, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I look back and I'm like, how inexperienced and unprotected children are. What in the world do I look like blaming a child when they tell me that they were uncomfortable in a space?
Mm-hmm.
Like is absolutely asinine. It's like it's crazy,
and especially as a father, like our parental role is just like bananas.
Yeah,
that was okay.
I mean, but in his mind, like the way he operated, like that's what he had to do, like to deflect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's crazy. Like Caitlin and I know because we had a very, very similar experience of him, right? Like growing up. So what we're saying makes total sense to us. And I hope we're painting the picture for people listening, but it's not. It's no joke. It's not funny. It's like it's not it's not really even. It can't even be reduced to a TikTok. It's like your life is kind of altered by that person with that personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So. Yeah, well, we actually have a little fun part here. Well, it's not really fun, but we're gonna take a little narcissistic personality disorder test. We're gonna answer some of these questions and see how much of a narcissist we are. Because apparently everybody's on the spectrum, right? Like it's But okay, so we can just kind of go back and forth. We're not gonna answer all of them because it's a 40-minute quiz. We don't have that kind of time. But yeah, let's answer some of these and like see where we can go.
Okay.
This is on Psych Central, by the way. The article is called Narcissistic Test. If you like want to take this yourself, find out if you are in fact a narcissist. Okay. So, which statement best matches you? I have a natural talent for influencing people. I am not good at influencing people. What do you think?
For me or for you?
For you.
I say I'm probably not that good at influencing people.
All right, we're gonna click that.
I'm more of like you just do your own thing.
Okay, these are all which statement best matches you. So just answer one. Modesty doesn't become me. I am essentially a modest person.
I would say I'm pretty modest.
I would do anything on a dare. I tend to be fairly cautious.
I'm pretty cautious, I'd say.
When people compliment me, I sometimes get embarrassed. I know that I'm good because everybody keeps telling me so.
I get embarrassed.
The thought of ruling the world frightens me. If I ruled the world, it would be a better place.
I'd say more of the thought of ruling the world frightens me because I would have to be in control of all these people and people are crazy.
All right. See, I don't mean this in a narcissist way, but I feel like if I could actually rule the world, I would just get rid of a lot of crazy shit.
But that's the thing. The world be fighting to get rid of it. So I'm not up for that. That's beyond me, honey.
I would go into it optimistic and then I'd probably be like, I can't do this.
Yeah, so
I'm going back to civilian life. Yeah. I'm not about to like.
You're not the sole person making a decision. Like there's so many other people. Like it's like pointless to even at this point. It's pointless. Exactly. Okay, I'll read some. I can usually talk my way out of anything. I try to accept the consequences of my behavior.
I try to accept the consequences of my behavior.
I prefer to blend in with the crowd. I like to be the center of attention.
Blend in with the crowd. Although when it comes to artwork, well, it ain't even about that. It's like I would want people to know my artwork. You know what I mean? Not really
Yeah.
like center of attention. So I don't know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I will be successful. I am not too concerned about success.
I am concerned about success, but it's not in some but it's because I feel like if I succeed, then I can bring others with me or I can do some good.
Yeah.
I hate to be qualifying all of these, but yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It
That's,
doesn't,
you know what I
which
mean?
best matches you. So, I am no better or worse than most people. I think I'm a special person.
I'm no better or worse than most people. That's what I would say.
I'm not sure if I would make a good leader. I see myself as a good leader.
It depends on what. Like, if you're talking about ruling the world, I don't know about that.
Facts.
Now, I can lead a film set or I can lead an art project. I think I can do that good. But
yeah, so which one?
I'm gonna say I'm not sure if I make a good leader on the government thing. Just because I feel like that.
I am assertive. I wish I were more assertive.
Depends, but I'm gonna say for some situations, I wish I were more assertive.
More assertive. Okay. I'm gonna scroll down and see what we can find. Compliments embarrass me. I like to be complimented.
That really is such a one-sided question to me because
it's just which one? It's not an analyze the question.
I know. I'm gonna say. I guess I'll say I'd like to be complimented, but it really is for a different reason, not just on some superficial stuff.
I like to look at myself in the mirror. I'm not particularly interested in looking at myself in the mirror.
Not interested in looking at myself in the mirror.
I really like to be the center of attention. It makes me uncomfortable to be the center of attention.
It makes me uncomfortable to be center of attention.
People sometimes believe what I tell them. I can make anybody believe I want anything. Excuse me. I can make anybody believe anything I want them to.
Sometimes you will believe what I tell them.
Okay. I am much like everybody else. I am an extraordinary person.
I'm much like most people.
I am more capable than other people. There's a lot that I can learn from other people.
A lot I can learn from others.
Okay. What else we got here? Let's see. Being an authority, I think that's incorrect spelling, but being in authority doesn't mean that much to me. People always seem to recognize my authority.
Being an authority doesn't mean that much to me.
Okay. You want to ask some more?
Yeah. Do you want to finish it? I don't know. It's kind of a long quiz, but
yeah, we don't have to finish it. I was just skipping around getting some questions.
Yeah. Well, I guess kind of anticlimactic because we didn't get the results. But you kind of see how they're building things. Like, obviously, a narcissist would be like, I'm amazing. I'm the only person. I can talk people into this. I can do that. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of frame the questions that way. So maybe this isn't like the best test because they kind of halfway frame it for you. But
so I actually submitted the quiz and we got our results back. We were in the 0 to 11 section, which is no narcissism. 12 to 15 is mild narcissism. And most people score between 12 and 15. So that's average. Moderate narcissism is 16 to 18. And celebrities often score closer to 18. So celebrities are oftentimes narcissistic.
I wonder if it only, so it calculates.
It's based on the score, I guess.
Yeah, but if you don't finish all the questions, then some of them won't be, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying, just to get the scale over here. And then 20 or plus is a true narcissist.
Yeah.
And it's based off interpreting 7 components of narcissism. So the traits for narcissism. Yeah,
gotcha.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because, like we were saying, it's a range, right?
Yeah, and it's a spectrum. So you can be anywhere on that spectrum, which is, gets us to the non-mild, moderate, and or narcissist.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to know that those answers were mostly non-narcissistic, which
right.
Yeah.
Which I wonder what the number is with the answers we provided. I would be interested in knowing that.
The ones that I provided on mine?
with both of us, like we both like answer some questions, but like they didn't give you like a number. They just like put you in a category.
Yeah, mine. Well, the ones that I did was 12. So mild narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
So
you got a number?
Yeah, based on the ones that you gave me.
So I'm a mild narcissist?
That's what they say.
Wow, I only answered 5 questions. Jesus Christ.
Well, we only answered like five or 6 questions, so
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good to know, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing also is, I feel like a lot of these, there's nuances to these questions because, like,
for sure,
just being like, modesty doesn't become me. It's like, okay, but in certain situations, yeah, I am out there in my like 2-piece, like, you know what I mean? Like, like, so yeah, on that one particular Friday, Saturday night, modesty really didn't become me because I wasn't trying to be modest, you know?
Exactly. But on the rest of the week, I was.
Exactly, right? But you catch me on a Tuesday at the library, sweatpants, you know.
Modest as hell.
Modest, like that kind of thing. So I feel like there's nuance to these questions. It's like this little binary they have kind of, you know, it's not totally doing it for me. But yeah, no, that was fun. I mean, you know, online quizzes are always, you know, accurate, right? Of course.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, those are interesting to take. I like to take us to kind of like see like where their barometer for things is. Like where do they really see a narcissist? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that I think that was a pretty good conversation about narcissism. I hope you know, listening, that you really gained a lot of, you know, information about what a narcissist is if you didn't like, you know that definition before. As always, we encourage you to do your own research, and there's plenty of research out about it now. Thank God. Because, you know, 20 years ago, nobody would have known what the heck a narcissist was. The slightest bit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, anything else for you?
No, I think that was a pretty good episode. We've got I got even a better understanding of what a narcissist is and the spectrum and the personality disorder. So yeah, but thank you for listening to another podcast with us. We appreciate all of your support for CaCo Talks. And we hope to see you in the next episode.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Before we end this episode, we wanted to take some time to remind our listeners, if you or someone you know are struggling with mental or emotional health or any of the issues we discussed in our podcast, you are not alone. There are resources to help. In the podcast description, we've listed contact information for 3 resources we suggest for crisis situations. You can reach out to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, National Alliance on Mental Illness, and the National Suicide Prevention Hotline.